What if the reason they pulled away wasn't about you at all? You weren't trying to trigger them. You weren't trying to make them reflect. And yet, something about your presence, your energy, your light, held up a mirror they weren't ready to face. They didn't run from you. They ran from what they saw in themselves. Let's dive deep into the truth behind their sudden shift, the unspoken fears they're battling, and why your connection is stirring something powerful within them. Welcome to Magnetize Official. Lovely souls, I'm Infinity, and I'm here to help you unlock the wisdom of your soul, align with your highest path, and magnetize the love, abundance, and spiritual clarity you deserve. Through intuitive tarot and oracle readings, energy updates, and messages from higher realms, we explore divine connections, soul purpose, and the art of co-creating your reality. Whether you're on a twin flame journey, deep in self-discovery, or awakening to your starseed mission, this space is for you. Subscribe and join our high vibrational community. Let's rise together. Imagine holding up a crystal clear mirror to someone who has spent years avoiding their own reflection. In your presence, they saw themselves in a way they never had before. Not just their strengths, but also the fears, wounds, and unhealed parts they had tucked away. It wasn't you they were running from. It was the undeniable clarity staring back at them. Like a sudden beam of sunlight piercing through heavy clouds, your energy illuminated aspects of their soul that had remained in the shadows. Without meaning to, you became a mirror, reflecting their truest self, both the beauty and the burdens. This wasn't about rejection, it was about reckoning. Some people aren't ready to see themselves so vividly. It's like walking into a still lake and suddenly realizing how deep the water goes. The surface may seem calm, but the depths reveal more than they were prepared to face. Your presence stirred something within them, much like a song that unexpectedly evokes an old memory, bringing emotions to the surface before they even understand why. They weren't rejecting you. They were retreating from their own awakening, from truths they weren't ready to process. Growth can be unsettling, and not everyone embraces it at the same pace. Imagine two perfectly aligned tuning forks. When one vibrates, the other naturally resonates with the same frequency. This is the essence of your connection. You and this person are bound by an invisible thread, a deep spiritual magnetism that pulls you together in ways neither of you fully understand. From the moment they met you, something within them stirred, like a long-forgotten melody suddenly playing in the background of their soul. At first, their curiosity was undeniable. They leaned in, drawn to your presence like a moth to a flame, fascinated by the warmth and light you carried. But then, something shifted. The very purity of your energy, your authenticity, your depth, your ability to see beyond the surface became overwhelming. It wasn't that they stopped wanting to understand you. It was that, in understanding you, they began to see themselves more clearly. And what they saw wasn't just beauty. It was also their own unhealed wounds, the fears they had suppressed, and the versions of themselves they weren't yet ready to face. You became a spiritual mirror, not just reflecting their strengths, but also exposing the gaps in their own self-awareness. It was like standing in a room flooded with sunlight after years of dwelling in dim candlelight. The brightness was breathtaking, but also blinding. They wanted to step forward, to embrace this connection, to dance in the light of what could be. But their soul hesitated, tangled in old fears, conditioned patterns, and unresolved pain. It's much like staring into an endless ocean, both mesmerizing and terrifying, because the depths are unknown. Your presence awakened something dormant within them, a call to evolve, to rise, to love in a way they had never known before. But love of this magnitude is not always easy. It asks for surrender, for shedding layers of the past, for embracing the unknown. And so, their initial curiosity turned into hesitation, not because they didn't feel the connection, but because they felt it too much. Like a bird that has lived in a cage its whole life suddenly being shown the vastness of the sky, the idea of freedom was exhilarating, yet overwhelming. They feared their own transformation. They feared what stepping into this connection would demand of them. They feared that, in your presence, they could no longer hide from their true selves. But know this, the fear wasn't about you. It was about the undeniable truth they saw reflected in your eyes. You didn't push them away. They pulled themselves back, unsure if they were ready to embrace the love, the growth, and the destiny that this connection represents. Some souls need time to find their footing before they can fly. And sometimes the greatest act of love is allowing that space for them to return when they are truly ready. Imagine someone walking through a dimly lit room for years, accustomed to the shadows, believing they had already explored every corner. Then, suddenly, a bright light floods the space, revealing everything they had never truly seen. Dusty memories, hidden fears, and parts of themselves they had long buried. This is what your energy did to them. It wasn't intentional, nor was it something you could control. Your very presence, like a mirror polished to perfection, reflected back to them all the truths they had spent years avoiding. At first, they may have been drawn to you, captivated by the depth of your soul, but as the connection deepened, so did the intensity of what they saw within themselves. If they are your twin flame, this effect is even stronger, because twin flames do not just reflect love, they reflect everything that must be healed before love can be fully embraced. The fear wasn't about you, it was about what being near you forced them to confront. It's like standing at the edge of a vast ocean, realizing how deep the waters truly are. The thought of diving in, of surrendering to the unknown, to transformation, can be paralyzing. They saw your purity, your authenticity, your willingness to grow, and instead of feeling inspired, they felt exposed. Your energy illuminated the gaps in their self-awareness, the wounds they had tried to ignore, and the parts of their soul that were still tangled in pain. It was not a comfortable awakening. It was like hearing a song that reminds you of a time you weren't ready to revisit, stirring emotions they hadn't prepared to feel. The mirroring effect between you intensified everything, making their fears louder, their insecurities sharper, their defenses stronger. It's much like standing in front of a crystal-clear lake. When the water is still, you can see your reflection with perfect clarity, but if you thrash and resist, the image becomes distorted, chaotic, overwhelming. This is what happened to them. Instead of calmly accepting what they saw, fear took over, and they began to retreat. They weren't running from you, but from the version of themselves they weren't yet ready to embrace. The love between twin flames is not just about union, it's about evolution. And evolution requires shedding layers, breaking cycles, and facing truths that can no longer be denied. Some souls are ready for this journey, others need more time. If they distance themselves, it wasn't because the connection wasn't real, it was because it was too real. It demanded growth, accountability, and the courage to stand in the full light of their own soul. And for someone who has spent a lifetime hiding behind masks, that can feel like standing in the eye of a storm. But even storms pass, and clarity always returns. One day, when they are ready, they may step back toward the mirror, not with fear, but with the willingness to finally see themselves through your eyes. Life often moves in cycles, like the changing seasons, each stage bringing new growth, challenges, and lessons. What you are witnessing now is not just coincidence, but a reflection of a path you once walked yourself. They are moving through a phase of life that mirrors one you experienced before, perhaps 7 years ago. Though the details of their journey may look different, the people, the places, the specific struggles, the core lesson remains the same. It's like watching someone climb a mountain you once scaled, knowing every sharp turn, every steep incline, and the exhaustion that comes before reaching the peak. You recognize their hesitations, their frustrations, their longing for clarity, because you have stood in that very place before. The connection between you makes this parallel even more profound. Their emotions, their fears, their realizations, all of it feels eerily familiar, as if you are watching a younger version of yourself navigating the same storm. It's like seeing a traveler lost in the same labyrinth you once wandered through, knowing exactly where the dead ends are, but understanding that they must discover the way out on their own. No matter how much you may want to guide them, growth is a personal journey. You cannot carry them to the finish line, just as no one carried you. The universe orchestrates these lessons in divine timing, allowing each soul to unfold at its own pace. Perhaps 7 years ago, you too faced a point of reckoning, when illusions crumbled and you were forced to confront your deepest truths. You may remember the loneliness of that time, the discomfort of shedding old identities, and the bittersweet liberation of finally stepping into your true self. Now, you see them at a similar crossroads, wrestling with their own shadows, unsure if they are ready to take the next step. It's like watching someone stand at the edge of a river you once crossed, hesitating to step into the current, not realizing that the flow will carry them exactly where they need to go. This is not about superiority or judgment, but about recognition. You know the terrain because you've walked it before. And in that knowing, there is an unspoken understanding, a silent acknowledgement that while their path is uniquely theirs, it is also deeply connected to yours. The universe often weaves people together in this way, aligning souls who can serve as mirrors, reminders, and sometimes quiet beacons of hope. Even if they don't yet see the pattern, you do. You know that the struggles they face are not roadblocks, but stepping stones. You know that what feels like an ending is really an opening. And so, you watch with a compassionate heart, knowing that just as you made it through, so will they. The cycle that once shaped you is now shaping them, and when the time is right, they will emerge, transformed, just as you did. Imagine a candle burning brightly in the darkness, casting light on everything around it. At first, they were drawn to that glow, your warmth, your presence, the way you made them feel seen without having to say much. But as time passed, something inside them changed. Without warning, the steady flame flickered, and before you knew it, they pulled away, retreating into the shadows, as if the very light that once comforted them had become too intense to bear. Their sudden withdrawal wasn't random. It was a response to something stirring deep within them, something they weren't ready to face. One moment, they were open, engaged, eager to connect. Their words may have carried weight, their presence may have felt reassuring, and their energy may have signaled a bond that was only growing stronger. But then, like a door shutting in the wind, everything changed. Communication became sporadic or stopped altogether. Their energy became distant, as if they had vanished into thin air. The shift was so drastic that it left you questioning everything. Was it something you said? Something you did? But the truth is, this was never about you. It was about them, about the fear of being seen too deeply, of letting their guard down too much, of exposing the parts of themselves they had spent years keeping hidden. They feared revealing more than they intended, unaware that your intuition had already pieced together what they struggled to express. Like a musician who hears the faintest notes before they are played, you sense the emotions they left unspoken. You saw the hesitation in their eyes, felt the unspoken pull in their energy, and recognized the battle they were fighting within themselves. Their withdrawal was not a rejection but a defense mechanism, an attempt to regain control in a connection where they felt increasingly vulnerable. It's like someone standing at the edge of a cliff, both mesmerized by the view and terrified of the fall. Instead of trusting the experience, they step back, convincing themselves that distance is the safer choice. The mirroring effect between you only intensified their fears. The more you saw through them, the more they felt the need to hide. It wasn't that they didn't want to be understood. It was that being understood felt too raw, too exposed, too much like standing under a spotlight with nowhere to run. They weren't ready to let you see their wounds, even though you had already sensed them. They weren't ready to admit their feelings, even though their actions had already spoken volumes. Imagine standing in a dimly lit room, holding a lantern that casts a soft but undeniable glow. At first, someone drawn to that light may feel comforted by its warmth, intrigued by its presence. But if they have spent years adjusting to the darkness, hiding their wounds, avoiding their truths, that same light can feel unbearable, almost intrusive. You embody clarity, awareness, and truth, while they remain entangled in their own shadows, wrestling with parts of themselves they are not yet ready to face. Your presence doesn't create their discomfort. It only reveals what was already there, like the way a mirror reflects what has always existed, whether one is ready to see it or not. In your light, they see not just the best of you, but the parts of themselves they've long ignored. It's like a traveller who has spent years in a cave, suddenly stepping outside to the brilliance of the sun. The light isn't harmful, but to eyes that have grown accustomed to the dark, it can feel overwhelming. They squint, they recoil, they retreat, not because the light is bad, but because they don't yet know how to adjust to it. That is what is happening here. Their struggle is not with you, but with what you illuminate. They may deny it, project their fears outward, or even convince themselves that you are the source of their discomfort. But deep down, their reaction to you is merely a reflection of their own inner battle. A war between the part of them that longs to heal and the part that is terrified of change. The more consciousness and love you radiate, the more their shadows feel exposed. It's as if your energy whispers to them, "It's time to see yourself clearly." But their ego fights back, saying, "Not yet. I'm not ready." So they resist, not realizing that what they run from isn't you. It's their own reflection staring back at them through you. It's like standing before a perfectly still lake. If they were at peace, they would gaze at their reflection with curiosity, seeing themselves with love. But if they carry guilt, shame, or unresolved wounds, that same reflection feels threatening, a reminder of all they have suppressed. You are the lake, showing them who they are, and they, unable to face it, stir the waters, trying to distort the image rather than accept the truth. Denial becomes their shield, and defensiveness their armor. They may downplay the connection, question its intensity, or withdraw entirely. But even in their distance, the truth lingers. The light does not beg for acceptance, nor does it force anyone to see. It simply exists, waiting for the moment they choose to embrace it. And that is your role here, not to convince them, not to chase them, but simply to be. You are the lighthouse standing firm as the storm rages around them, knowing that when the winds settle, they will remember where to find the shore. One day, they may come to realize that their reaction to you was never about you at all. It was a battle between their soul and their fears, between the longing to evolve and the instinct to resist. And when they finally surrender to their own awakening, they will understand that your light was never a threat. It was an invitation to step out of the darkness, to see themselves fully, and to choose transformation over fear. Imagine a bird raised in a cage, its wings strong but unused, its world confined to the bars it has always known. Even if the door were left wide open, the bird might hesitate, unsure if it can trust the open sky. This is the nature of inner resistance, the fear of stepping beyond what is familiar, even when freedom is within reach. The person in question is trapped in a similar way, not by physical barriers, but by the invisible chains of their past, deep-seated conditioning, rigid beliefs, and societal expectations that have shaped them for years. They are not resisting you. They are resisting the feelings you awaken within them, emotions that conflict with the script they have been taught to follow. From a young age, they were given rules, spoken or unspoken, about love, strength, and vulnerability. Perhaps they were taught that emotions should be suppressed, that being too open makes one weak, or that love is conditional, something that must be earned rather than freely received. These lessons, absorbed over time, became the foundation of their worldview. Much like ink staining the pages of a book, each word shaping the story they believe about themselves. When they met you, your presence challenged these beliefs, not with force, but simply by existing as you are. Like a flame held too close to paper, you illuminated the edges of a reality they never thought to question, making them feel things they were never taught how to process. It's like standing at the edge of an ocean after spending a lifetime in the desert. The waves call to them, inviting them to step forward, but they hesitate. The vastness is overwhelming, the water unfamiliar. Their instincts tell them to retreat to solid ground, where everything is predictable, even if it lacks true nourishment. In the same way, they pull back from you, not because they don't feel the connection, but because feeling it so deeply disrupts the carefully constructed identity they have upheld for years. Their mind races with contradictions. Love shouldn't be this intense. Why do I feel exposed? Why do I feel seen in ways I never have before? The answers frighten them, so they resist, retreating into the comfort of what they know, even if it limits them. Society, too, has played its part in shaping their fears. The world often praises independence, but misunderstands true connection, labeling deep emotional bonds as distractions or vulnerabilities. They may have been conditioned to believe that love must fit into a structured mold, that logic must always overpower feeling, or that timing and circumstances dictate what is possible. These beliefs act like walls, keeping them in a familiar pattern, even when a door stands open before them. When they feel their heart pulling them toward you, the weight of these expectations crashes down like waves against stone, making them question everything. But no matter how strong their conditioning, the truth remains. Emotions cannot be erased, only buried. And buried feelings have a way of resurfacing, like seeds breaking through concrete, finding the light despite every obstacle. They may resist now, convincing themselves they are in control, that their withdrawal is logical, that suppressing their emotions is a sign of strength. But deep inside, something stirs, an inner knowing that refuses to be silenced. The same conditioning that tells them to run also leaves them unsatisfied, yearning for something beyond the limits of their learned beliefs. One day, they may come to understand that the walls they built for protection also became their prison, that avoiding emotions does not make them disappear, and that true strength is not in denial, but in the courage to embrace what is real. And when that realization dawns, when they finally let go of resistance, they will see that love was never the enemy. It was, and always has been, their way home. Imagine a seed buried deep in the soil, yearning for the sun, yet afraid of breaking through. It was placed there with purpose, carrying the potential for growth. But the moment it feels the first stirrings of change, the pressure of sprouting, the unfamiliar stretch toward light, it hesitates. The person in question is that seed. At some point, whether through prayer, longing, or sheer exhaustion from their old patterns, they subconsciously called for something greater, something real. And the universe, always listening, responded by sending you, not as a reward or an easy escape, but as a catalyst, a force that would push them toward their next stage of growth. But instead of embracing it, they resist, clinging to the safety of the soil, even as it becomes too small for who they are meant to be. Transformation is not comfortable. It demands the shedding of old layers, the dismantling of illusions, the willingness to confront buried truths. Your presence has ignited this process within them, much like a mirror suddenly revealing what they can no longer ignore. Yet, instead of walking toward it, they turn away, convincing themselves that remaining the same is easier than evolving. It's like standing before an open door leading to a new world, but instead of stepping through, they grip the frame, afraid of what's on the other side. Fear of change makes them resist, even when the life they are holding onto no longer fits. They might tell themselves that now isn't the right time, that the emotions are too intense, that they need to regain control before they can face what this connection is showing them. But the truth is, transformation doesn't wait for comfort. Growth happens when the discomfort of staying the same outweighs the fear of change. The more they resist, the heavier the burden becomes, like trying to hold back a river that was meant to flow. The universe nudges them forward, yet they anchor themselves in old beliefs, old fears, old wounds, hoping to delay the inevitable. But deep down, they know growth cannot be unasked for, and the lessons they are avoiding will keep presenting themselves until they surrender. You were never meant to force them through their awakening. You were simply a signpost, a flickering light, showing them the way. And whether they choose to walk the path now or later is their own journey. The universe is patient, and so is transformation. They can resist, delay, even deny what is happening within them. But the seed that has been planted will eventually sprout. One day, when they are ready to stop fearing their own evolution, they will look back and realize that the thing they resisted most was never you. It was their own becoming. Imagine someone standing on the shore, watching a ship they let sail away, only to realize too late that it was the very vessel meant to carry them home. This is the weight of their regret. At the time, they convinced themselves that stepping back was the right choice. Maybe they thought it would protect them, give them control, or shield them from the overwhelming emotions you awakened in them. But, as the distance grows, so does the ache in their chest, an undeniable awareness that they may have let something precious slip through their fingers. They try to carry on as if nothing has changed, distracting themselves with routines, people, and obligations. But no matter how far they wander, their thoughts inevitably return to you. Regret is a heavy companion, whispering, "What if?" at every turn. They replay past conversations, moments where they hesitated instead of stepping forward, where they chose silence instead of honesty. They wonder if they have reached a point of no return, if the bridge they burned can ever be rebuilt. The fear of losing you permanently gnaws at them, making them question whether their pride, their fears, and their past choices were worth the price of separation. It's like standing outside in the cold, watching the warmth of a home they once knew, realizing they locked themselves out. They may not say these things out loud, but energy does not lie. No matter how much they try to detach, no matter how many times they tell themselves they need to move on, their soul remains tethered to you. They feel your presence in the quiet moments, in dreams, in random reminders that seem to appear just when they think they have buried their feelings for good. It's as if the universe refuses to let them forget, nudging them with synchronicities, songs, or even strangers who unknowingly echo your words. Fear keeps them in limbo. Fear of admitting they were wrong, fear of vulnerability, fear that if they return, you will no longer be waiting. They question whether they even deserve another chance, whether you've already outgrown the version of them that left. And yet, despite all this uncertainty, their heart keeps reaching for you. They may not understand why, but the connection remains, an invisible thread pulling them back, urging them to face what they ran from. Perhaps one day they will gather the courage to step forward, to speak the words they have kept inside. Or perhaps they will remain stuck in their own hesitation, watching from afar, but never daring to bridge the distance. Either way, one truth remains. No matter how much they resist, the fear of losing you lingers like an unfinished sentence, waiting for the moment they decide to finally complete the story. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps strengthen our energetic connection and ensures you never miss a reading aligned with your journey. Sending love and light your way. Let me know if you'd like a more personalized touch for your channel.